Hey guys, you probably have just taken your muscular system test and you are now ready to go over the notes for today for your nervous system. You should have your nervous system packet. Either it's from when I gave it to you before, it's got a picture of a neuron on the front. Way back when last semester I gave you all the packets for the rest of the year. If you don't have it with you, there should be some with your substitute at the front of the classroom. So make sure you have one of those. And then go ahead and take this opportunity to write down our new test dates on the top of your packet. Yes, there are 2 tests for this unit. There will be a dissection of a sheep brain with this test. And so you will have a lab practical towards the end of the month on Tuesday, February 23rd. The next day we have class. We will have the Unit 7 test. Ideally, we'll have a little bit of time to review after we finish the brain practical portion, and then you'll test the very next day. It's just the best way that it worked out. Block schedule is going to make this kind of tricky in keeping our specimens preserved long enough for you to use them for the test so that they don't get all gross and slimy before we test over them. Things to look forward to. So be sure you put those down on your calendars. Tuesday, February 23rd, and Thursday, February 25th. The dissection day is the day you really don't want to miss. If something's going on for you that day, you could take the test with the 5th and 7th period students on Wednesday. That would be an option for you. More on that later, but good to have those dates down in your notes and in your calendars. Okay, this first little part of notes, you're going to use the back. Okay, there's a totally back blank sheet where it says other notes or just notes. Okay, you're going to fill this up. You can kind of see that Mrs. Lloyd used some color coding a little bit. It doesn't really matter the colors you pick, just maybe 2. And then these first little bits of notes are just going to be over the functions, and you're just going to put those at the top. So use your backside, okay, for this first little bit here. All right, this picture isn't in your packet. This is a very basic concept of the nervous system. Is you've got inputs and outputs. Okay, my eye seeing a glass of water. I have my morning tea with me here. My eyes see this tea, and I tell myself, "Oh, that looks good." Right, and I send that information to my brain. Here's my tea. So my brain is going to integrate that information and have some action that I'm going to do. I picked up my mug. I'm going to have a drink. Everything I just did here was a motor output. My brain told my body to do something, and I responded. These 3 things are your 3 functions of your nervous system. Okay, it's as simple as that. We sense and gather information about the world around us. Touch, feel, taste, smell, right? And then I decide and process what to do with that information, okay? And my body is then going to respond. The part of my body that responds is called the motor output, okay? The only thing, this is kind of crazy when you think about everything your nervous system does for you. The only thing that your body actually controls are muscles and glands. That's it. Right now, I am talking to you and I'm recording a video and I'm putting it on YouTube. Everything I am doing is only because my brain is controlling muscles to do that. The other stuff that I don't have to think about is going to be my autonomics things. Those things, excuse me while I turn my volume down. Those things are going to be the things that are automatically controlled. So my hormone levels in my body, my wakefulness and sleepfulness cycles and things like that. That's it. That's the only thing my nervous system controls. My muscles and my glands. And that keeps me alive. That's kind of cool. So That's all I wanted you to write at the very top, okay? The functions of our nervous system. And then that leads us into how the nervous system is organized. Okay, you don't need to sketch this picture unless you're into that sort of a thing. Okay, we're still on the back side. Okay, you can kind of see that Mrs. Lloyd's drawing here has like boxes and colored arrows. Okay, if you want to follow the colors on the screen, it's just like blue and pink or blue and red. Notice that these two boxes are not outlined. This is significant, okay? These two are just like pencil, okay, at least on mine. But the arrows, we've got an arrow coming this way that's blue, an arrow coming this way that's pink. This box is outlined in blue with an arrow going in and then also in this way. And then all of the pink arrows are going down, okay? Other than these top two boxes and this one, these ones are all going to be outlined in pink. You might wait to see how much space you need before you draw the boxes, just so you see how much writing you're going to do in them. It's not a lot, just a few words in each though. All right, but the arrow is going up and the arrow is going down. This will make more sense at the end. You might wait to draw all those. So this is how my nervous system is organized, and your homework is going to go over this. We have what's called the CNS, or central nervous system, that our body controls. If you don't know, the central nervous system is simply your brain and spinal cord. Okay, think of this as like the control center, okay, of your muscular system. Brain, spinal cord. Okay, that's it. In fact, this is where I always tell you to close your eyes. This will be our bell ringer for the next day, but you can just see, okay, what is depicted on here in the like light pink, not the yellow, but the light pink here is my central nervous system. That tube and this little squishy wrinkly thing up here. The peripheral nervous system, okay, is all of these yellow branches, including those nerves that go to my face and then the rest of my body. Okay, it's my peripheral nervous system. And so my central nervous system is made up of my brain and spinal cord. My peripheral nervous system, PNS, is made up of 12 cranial nerves. Those were the ones that were like going to the face and the throat. And then the 31 spinal cords, or spinal nerves, excuse me, that branch off of the spinal cord. You only have the 31, okay, and they go and control, okay, your limbs, your internal organs, your legs, and from there, those neurons branch off into smaller and smaller motor units that we learned about in the last chapter. All right, so that's the stuff. That's all my nervous system is. Brain, spinal cord, nerves. That's it. But the brain is obviously a very complicated thing, and so we will be spending quite a bit of time talking about how it works and functions. Now, as you just saw in the functions, we have a sensory input. Okay, I'm going to send information to my spinal cord and brain. That's the blue arrows, is the sensory tract. Okay, so this is what we call, the afferent. Do you remember that from our homeostatic pathways? Okay, afferent is the incoming message, and then my brain decides what to do with that. And so all those blue lines, okay, that you have on here, that's my afferent pathway, or my sensory division of my nervous system. These are the things that are going to tell my brain stuff. These are your senses, right? Your senses: taste, touch, sight, hearing, and something else that I'm spacing on. I already said hearing. Anyways, then what does my nervous system control? My motor, okay? My motor, or it's not afferent, but efferent. I knew you knew it. The efferent. I'm going to send information to my effectors, my muscles and glands, okay? Now, there are things that I can consciously control in my body, right? Those things that I have conscious control over are only my skeletal muscles. We call this division the somatic nervous system. Somatic, okay? The things that I have conscious control over. And then those are the things, there's so much more, thank goodness, that I don't have to think about. Okay. I don't have to think about the pumping of my blood in my cardiac tissue. I don't have to think about breathing consciously. I don't have to think about releasing my hormones for maintaining metabolism and defending my body. Okay. All of those things are controlled by my autonomic nervous system. So, those things that I don't have to think about, think of autonomic as automatic. Okay. They're the things that just happen automatically. I wake up in the morning and they're just rolling away. I don't have to think about controlling them at all. Okay, the voluntary side of things is my somatic nervous system. Me talking to you right now, actively taking a drink of tea, oh, that's good, is my somatic nervous system. Okay, now then your autonomic nervous system is divided into two more subsections. Um, Basically, it's your fight or flight, or the not fight or flight, which we coin as rest and digest. So we have the sympathetic nervous system, right, and the parasympathetic nervous system. If my body is operating under stress, okay, because I was looking down at my cell phone when I was crossing the street and a car rushed right by me, and I like get startled. My heart starts racing, my breathing increases, my eyes are going to dilate, my blood vessels are going to sort of dilate everywhere they're going to go. I have just activated my sympathetic nervous system, okay? My fight or flight response. Normally, hopefully, your body is operating under your parasympathetic digestive system or nervous system, which would control most things that are just there maintaining, keeping you alive, your rest and digest. So Mrs. Lloyd's chilling out in her classroom, right? I'm not very stressed. There's nobody in here. It's my prep period. I'm enjoying some tea and talking to you guys. I'm in my parasympathetic nervous system. I'm resting and digesting. They just call it rest and digest, I think, because it rhymes. But all of the things that happen normally if you are not under stress. We Americans tend to live stressful lives, though. And so, although I might not be being chased by a lion, I might be living in a sympathetic nervous system more than I should if I'm living a high stress life. Things like having not having food security or safety or stress because of dealing with COVID and worries that it might give me and my family, or worrying about loved ones or drama, whatever. Sometimes we Americans are in our sympathetic nervous system more, and this leads to high blood pressure and some very dangerous side effects that happen as well. So don't be stressed. That's all. I just told you you have two tests coming up, but don't be stressed, guys. Okay. So, all right. So you should have a little kind of flow chart, okay, written on the back of your packet. Now we're gonna flip her over to the front and fill this guy out and then be done. First off, I want you to label on the top of this page here, this is a picture of a neuron. I think most of you guys know that already. Your neurons are irritable. I don't mean they're grumpy. I mean that they are easily stimulated. Okay? They're also excitable, which we'll talk about what that excitement turns into when we talk about an action potential. That should sound familiar from the test you just took. Action potential is just a nerve impulse. All right, but we got to talk about the structures of a neuron first. I hope some of these are familiar. First off, the head of the like big round portion of your neuron is called the cell body or the soma. That's the special name we give to the cell body of a neuron. But this is where you're going to find most of the organelles in the nucleus. Speaking of nucleus, there it is. Speaking of other organelles, there's the mitochondria. They also have rough ER, like in the muscular system. We don't call it rough ER. Okay? because, anatomist. It's called the Nissl substance, but it's basically rough ER. We also have dendrites. These are unique to a neuron. These are the little feelers that sort of come off. Think of your arm almost as a neuron. Okay, your forearm would be the axon, your palm would be the cell body, your fingers would be the little dendrites coming off. Okay. These little arrows I want you to see here is the incoming message. So the dendrites, okay, receive when a signal is getting sent in, they come into the cell body through the dendrites, and then the message continues to get passed down and along the axon. You can see these arrows are showing the direction of our action potential. You have kind of a neck right here of the neuron where it attaches to the axon, which is the long yellow tube, rod, string that continues off of the cell body. But the little neck region is called the axon hillock. And to give it structure and support, you have in there neurofibrils. These are fibrous organelles that are just going to keep it strong. If you guys have ever been charging your phone and you get that little kink at the end and the wires start fraying, we don't want that to happen to our neuron. So we've got a little extra support in there, neurofibrils. Your cell phones could probably use some, or cell phone chargers, I mean. All right, moving on down along our neuron, we get to the axon. The whole yellow rod here, that whole thing is the axon. So I could label it really anywhere. Sometimes like you might see a big bracket saying like this whole section. What is this whole section? Which would be the axon. All right. Then we have these little, they look like bubbles, okay, on this picture that surround the axon. They are called Schwann cells, named after Theodore Schwann. If you recognize that name, he helped create the cell theory. Said that all animals were made up of cells. Anyways, he discovered these cells, and these cells are wrapped. They're like layers and layers. Think of like a croissant roll wrapping around a hot dog. Super Bowl's coming up. Okay, you might be making pigs in a blanket. Okay, so you have your little hot dog and you're wrapping the pastry around it. The myelin sheath is sort of like the layers that are wrapping, but the whole thing as a chunk is a cell, because if you look here, these little purple dots, they have a nucleus. Okay, so it's a separate cell that's basically on the outside, right, of my axon, and think of it as providing insulation. Okay, much like rubber does around the outside of a wire. More on that later. There is gaps between the Schwann cells called the nodes of Ranvier. I like saying it like that. But the node of Ranvier, okay, is the gap. This will come into be important when we talk about how the signal gets sent down along the axon. And continuing down to the very end, you know that the end of our axon is called the axon terminal. Okay. And then we have this last label here is some axons have branches coming off of them. If they have a branch coming off, it's called a collateral branch because it's coming off of the side. All right, those are your parts of the neuron. More on their functions later, of course. I do want you to write this down, okay? I mentioned these arrows, okay? What the direction of our nerve impulse. So the impulse comes in through the dendrite, it passes through the cell body or the soma, goes through the axon hillock, all the way down the axon, and it'll end and come out the axon terminal. Okay, that's our direction of our nerve impulse or action potential. All right, right down below, okay, we have these three pictures. I'll kind of show you my page here. I've got those three pictures, and then I'm going to put some notes next to them in this space. So you have your neuron up above. So first off, there are 3 types of neurons that you can have, okay? You have what are called multipolar neurons. That's kind of the one you're used to seeing. We have this other one called a bipolar neuron and a unipolar neuron. I will tell you more about the structural differences and we'll label these little pieces later, but not right now. I want you to know where you find them in the body and what they do. Okay, so we're going to do structure and function, anatomy and physiology of these types of neurons. So my structural neurons, okay, I've numbered them 1, 2, 3 because I'm going to number my lists here, okay, according to which neuron I'm talking about. So my multipolar neuron, number 1, okay, are going to be used for my motor neurons and my interneurons. You don't know what interneurons yet are, but they're mostly found in your spinal cord and they connect to neurons. So they're the in-between neurons. Then we have the bipolar neurons. These ones are more rare in your nervous system. You specifically find them in your special senses. You pretty much only find them in your special senses. So you'll find them in your eyes, your nose. That's the next unit. It's a short unit, but we will go through all of our senses and talk about how they work and function. Then we have the unipolar neurons. Okay? They are the sensory neurons, okay, going on my afferent pathway, whereas my motor neurons would be my efferent pathway. So multipolar neurons are going out and my unipolar neurons are sending signals in. So again, I see my cup of tea. I heard the bell ring. That sent information to my brain. And then I decided what to do about the bell ringing. Let it keep ringing, whatever. And then my tea, I decided I wanted another drink. So that's an integration of the two. So this one would be sending information to my brain. This one is sending out to my muscles or glands. The functional job or role of these is my multipolar neurons. Number one is motor. It's going to control my motor functions. Also, number 1, not number 2. This is intentional. This is number 1. They're going to be also motor, interneurons as well. And then lastly, to the functional unit of these, this is a typo. This should say 3 sensory neurons. Oops. You get the idea. Okay. My sensory neurons, okay, okay, are these unipolar ones, and that's their function. The one that's missing from the list here is my bipolar neurons. Their only function is in your special senses. All right. So I'm not going to play this while I'm already playing a video, but you will see linked in your homework today this video as well. He goes through with his cutesy little cartoony pictures and describes how the nervous system is organized. He's going to give you more information on the types of neurons as well. I highly recommend you watch that. I'd play it in class if I was with you. Okay. And then, lastly, I want you to finish your homework about how the nervous system is organized and the structure of a neuron. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you 6th period at least on Monday.